chaos disrupted a small country, harmed the reputation of soccer's global governing body, and ultimately has altered the fabric of the entire sport. But how did this happen, and who is responsible? From extreme homophobia to human rights violations to absolute corruption at its core. The absurd spectacle of a tiny Gulf petrostate hosting the world's most prestigious tournament has revealed the ugly side of the beautiful game. In this video, I reveal the biggest and most mind-boggling secrets and truths about Qatar and World Cup 2022. Strap yourselves in because this is going to be a whirlwind of shock and awe. Chapter 1. Money is power. Qatar is a very small country. It is one of the world's smallest sovereign states, with less than 12,000 square kilometers of land, roughly twice the size of Delaware. But Qatar is lavishly rich. Qatar has the highest GDP per capita of any country on the planet. It is a country chock full of petrodollars, with a skyline reminiscent of the Jetsons. If money is power, then the Qataris have some serious muscle to flex. And they flexed their muscles when they won the right to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup. But how did they obtain it? How did this authoritarian state on the Arabian Peninsula pull off one of the most intriguing and controversial coups in football history? Football likely would not have grown as a sport if the World Cup had been held in England, the Low Countries, or the Iberian Peninsula. Russia's vast expanse in population offered potential for the growth that FIFA seeks, and now so does Qatar. This is a World Cup for the entire region, and Qatar's bid reflected that. The CAF, or Confederation of African Football, held its annual general meeting in Libya in early 2010, just months before the 2018 and 22 World Cup tournaments were to be awarded. Qatar put up the money for the event, knowing that the CAF was short on funds. They were Congress's sponsors. In exchange, they were given the chance to pitch their World Cup bid to the delegates, with a vote on FIFA's executive committee. This was the first time that a Congress excluded 99% of the bidding nations, while simultaneously offering its forum to only one nation. Can you guess which one? When the executive committee met to vote on World Cup hosts, the Africans most likely came through for Qatar. We don't know exactly how much Qatar spent on their 2022 bid, but The Guardian estimates it was slightly less than $200 million in public funds. Any private funds that were spent are untraceable. Think of that whatever you will. In comparison, Australia bid just under $43 million, while the United States bid less than $5 million. England allocated $24 million to process its bid in 2018. When it came down to the nitty-gritty, it was $42 million versus $200 million. Most definitely not even close. Qatar, the world's richest country, flexed its muscles. Its opponents were fiercely overshadowed in the face of its might. Following the awarding of the World Cup rights to Qatar, around a dozen FIFA officials involved have since been barred from the organization, including former president Sepp Blatter, and if they weren't blocked, they have been charged with corruption. Michel Platini, the former head of European soccer and a French soccer legend, was arrested in 2019 during an investigation into a $2 million payment related to his efforts to bring the World Cup to Qatar. Both Blatter and Platini continue to deny the allegations. Chapter 2. Might is right. When Qatar was chosen to host the tournament in 2010, it lacked many of the necessary highways, hotels, and even stadiums. In order to construct them, the country relied on its massive population of migrant workers, who account for at least 90% of that labor force. They are from places like Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and the Philippines. Qatar spent $300 billion on preparations in just 12 years. For comparison, Elon Musk's net worth is $260 billion. Doha, the capital of Qatar, was absolutely transformed, with new stadiums and hotels built just to accommodate more than 1 million fans for a single month. Qatar constructed 7 stadiums for the World Cup finals, as well as a new airport, metro system, road network, and approximately 100 new hotels. A city has been built around the stadium that will host the final match. The Qatari government claims that 30,000 foreign workers were hired solely to construct the stadiums. The population of Doha is 640,000. Migrant workers' living conditions were frequently exploitative and dangerous. According to multiple investigations and news sources, over 6,500 migrant workers have died in Qatar since 2010, many of which were working on World Cup projects. Many others died in labor camps under mysterious circumstances. FIFA and Qatar repeatedly deny these investigation findings. Qatar officials claim that only 3 people have died directly as a result of these projects, but it did acknowledge the deaths of 37 workers who were supposedly non-work related. Multiple sources all report much higher death numbers related to this World Cup project. Qatar also fames the World Cup as an incredible opportunity to improve welfare standards. Officials claim that working conditions have actually improved as a result of the tournament. The country introduced a set of workers' welfare standards in 2014, which created new protections. But there are multiple reports that these protections were rarely, if ever, enforced. In May, a coalition of human rights organizations urged FIFA and Qatar to establish a remedy fund, a pool of money that can be used to compensate migrant workers and the families of those who died as a direct result of the abuse suffered while working for the World Cup project. They claim that the fund should be no less than $440 million, the same amount as the World Cup prize money. It's funny, isn't it, that a country that claims only 3 people died working on the project would amass $440 million just to support 3 families that suffered for the World Cup project. Those must be some really big families. Chapter 3. Love is not love. Same-sex sexual activity between men and women is illegal in Qatar. Acts of sodomy and sexual intercourse between people of same sex are punishable under Qatari law. Sentences can carry a max penalty of death by stoning, but the maximum prison sentence is just 7 years. This law criminalizes both men and women. Prior to the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar, security forces began arbitrarily arresting LGBT people and subjecting them to ill treatment in detention. LGBT people were detained in an underground prison in Al Dafna, Doha, where they were verbally harassed and demeaned and subjected to physical abuse, ranging from slapping to kicking and even punching, in many cases to the point of drawing blood. Security guards also verbally abused detainees, tactically extracted forced confessions, and regularly denied access to legal counsel, family, and even medical care. All detainees were forced to sign pledges, promising to cease immoral activity. According to a multitude of other reports, Qatari police commonly use gay dating apps to entrap men and subject them to sexual and physical violence, all before arresting them. In response, the soccer captains of 7 European teams were planning to wear rainbow armbands during Qatar's World Cup in order to promote LGBT inclusion in a country where homosexuality is illegal. However, after facing criticism from FIFA, none of them were allowed to actually wear the band. In a statement, England's governing body for soccer, the Football Association, and its Welsh counterpart, along with the Netherlands, Switzerland, Germany, Denmark, and Belgium, confirmed that threats of FIFA sporting sanctions actually forced them to abandon the One Love campaign gesture that they announced. The Dutch Football Association launched the One Love campaign at the start of the 2020 season in order to express their support for unification of all people and condemned all forms of discrimination. It was announced in September of 2022 that 9 other nations, including Norway, Sweden, and France, would also adopt the campaign for upcoming matches such as the Qatar World Cup and the UEFA Nations League next year. The team captains agreed to wear the rainbow armband, which says One Love and has the number 1 inside of a heart. Despite the fact that it makes no direct reference to LGBT causes or discrimination, the rainbow flag is a globally recognized symbol of LGBT rights. FIFA has warned that teams attempting to spread the One Love message will be given an instant yellow card at kickoff. This would increase the likelihood of players being sent off during a match, which could have an impact on their overall standing in the tournament. Not just the captain's armband, Qatar wins a crackdown on LGBT fans by strictly enforcing anti-gay laws during the World Cup. The repressive regime in Qatar forbade football fans from wearing pro-LGBT clothing to World Cup matches. There were high-profile incidents of people being told to take their belongings off before attending games, making a mockery of FIFA's message that the World Cup is for everyone. Chapter 4. Patriarchal Cup. Misogyny. A sexist contempt and hatred of women seeks to keep women in a lower social status in patriarchal societies. With gender discrimination enshrined in Qatari law, which, among other things, does not criminalize domestic violence or sexual assault, misogyny is being broadcast globally via television, courtesy of the 2022 World Cup. Qatari law supports a deeply patriarchal system. Sex outside of marriage is prohibited, and Qatari women can marry only with the approval of a male guardian. This controversial male guardianship system influences women's ability to study, drive, and even travel. Men have an unassailable right to divorce, but the grounds on which a woman can seek divorce are highly limited. Wives are expected to obey their husbands and to prioritize homemaking. Women cannot pass on their nationality to their children, but men can, nor can they be the primary caregiver for their children in the event of divorce or death of their husband. Female beneficiaries receive half the amount of any inheritance received by their brothers. In order for a woman to receive sexual health or prenatal care, women must first provide proof of marriage. Did I mention that they also must follow a strict dress code? Domestic violence and rape, crucially, are not criminalized. While moral or physical assault by husbands against wives is prohibited by family law, reporting domestic abuse or sexual violence is frowned upon because it's seen as bringing shame to the family. Both the lack of prosecution for domestic violence and the victim blaming that surrounds sexual assault point to potential risks for any female World Cup attendees. According to research, women are actually at a higher risk of sexual assault at any major sporting event. Even in the United Kingdom during the World Cup matches and other major sporting events, there was a rise in domestic violence. As a result of the increased risk for women during this time, many choose not to travel to Doha for the World Cup. This in itself is inherently discriminatory. Those who do travel to Doha were advised to adhere to a strict dress code. Naturally, FIFA's stance on this has not been made clear. They simply stated that spectators can wear whatever they want, but they must follow local laws. Women in Qatar are expected to cover up in public. They must wear loose clothing and not expose their bodies, specifically their knees and shoulders. Breaking these rules can result in fines and even prison time. The UK government's official travel advice even includes strict laws against relationships outside of marriage. There have been numerous reports of visitors being prosecuted for violating these local laws. A Mexican World Cup official reported being sexually assaulted in June of 2021. As a result, rather than being viewed as a victim of sexual violence, she was accused of extramarital sex, which is against Qatari law. She was threatened with imprisonment and 100 lashes. Imagine visiting a country and not fully knowing or even understanding their laws, only to be removed by police officials and you have no idea why. Only to be threatened with 100 lashes and prison. In 2020, 13 Australian women were forcibly removed from grounded Qatar Airway planes in Doha at gunpoint. They were then subjected to internal exams without any consent, only because officials were seeking the mother of a newborn baby discovered within the airport. This is unacceptable. Chapter 5. The World Cup final is set for December 18th, 2022. However, the host team was the first to be eliminated from the World Cup. Qatar was ranked 113th in the world when it was awarded the tournament in 2010 and had never previously qualified for the World Cup. The most prestigious award the team had ever received was hosting the Arabian Gulf Cup twice. Since being awarded the tournament, they have also won the Arabian Gulf Cup for a third time in 2014 and the AFC Asian Cup in 2019. These facts prompted some to question Qatar's football culture and whether it even qualified to be the country to host the World Cup. The Qatar Football Association is also known for naturalizing foreign players for its own team, such as Sebastian Soria, Luis Jr., and Emerson Sheik. The Qatar Football Association has previously attempted to entice uncapped players from other countries to switch allegiance to the Gulf state. In 2004, the German-based Brazilian trio of Alton, Dede, and Leandro, none of whom have ever played in or have other ties to Qatar, helped their team qualify for the 2006 FIFA World Cup. FIFA blocked the moves, and national team eligibility requirements were tightened as a result. Prior to the World Cup, it was revealed that Qatar attempted to fix the opening match by offering $7 million to Ecuadorian players. With a 2-0 loss to Ecuador on the first day of the tournament, Qatar became the first host nation to lose their opening match at the World Cup. Qatar went on to lose 3-1 to Senegal in their second group match, becoming the tournament's first team to be eliminated. They were the first and only host to lose all of their games when they were defeated 2-0 by the Netherlands in their final group game. That's all for this video. What do you think about Qatar hosting the 2022 World Cup and all of the scandals that surround it? Did I miss anything? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. See you in the next one.